dash back from the temple to here. The temple, of course, is on the same property, so doesn't violate the lockdown protocols. Looking at the faces of those who are online. More are coming. So I guess even though I'm late, it's not a great setback because so many of you are late. I'm deciding what to speak about today on Lord Balaram's appearance day, at least in New Zealand. Tonight, New Zealand time, I'll be speaking for the UK, and it'll be the morning for them. I was turning through Nectar of Devotion, and I just decided I'm going to try and prove to devotees how nectarian is the Nectar of Devotion book, which, as you know, is a summary study of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And this summary study by Srila Prabhupada has so many treasures in it. As we advance in bhakti, we become more and more aware of what's in Nectar of Devotion. In fact, Srila Prabhupada's instructions for reading Nectar of Devotion are that just read it and there'll be a lot beyond your realization. But as you advance in bhakti, you'll be able to understand. Bells will ring in you. Let me get situated first. Take off my sweater or jumper, according to which country you're from. Okay. Jai Baladev. Shri Balaramaji ki jai.
Right.
As many of you know, there's practically no difference between Krishna and Balaram. Except Krishna is bluish, Balaram is whitish, and Krishna generally wears a yellow cloth and Balaram likes blue. More or less, that's the difference. Balaram is Krishna's first expansion, and they're very close. In Vrindavan Leela, Balaram is acting more or less as Krishna's equal. More or less. Mostly. But in Mathura and Dwarka Leela, Balaram assumes more of a role of an older brother. Today we can beg Lord Balaram for the spiritual strength to carry out Krishna's instructions. Sometimes when you read Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, you think, how will I ever be able to do this? How will I ever be able to transcend the bodily concept of life? How will I rid myself of lust, anger, greed, madness, envy, illusion? And for those doing outreach or who want to do outreach, we're thinking, how will I get the strength to carry out the Sankirtan mission, spreading Krishna's glories to every town and village? That is the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For all those items, our own daily sadhana, our attempts to chant with attention, our attempts to cooperate with other devotees, all these things sometimes can seem very difficult. Those of you who are householders have to deal with so many practicalities, things to do with the home, things to do with the children, things to do with work. There's only so much time in the day. And so you wonder, where does the strength come from to carry on? We can appeal today to Lord Balaram. Bala, not physical strength does Bala mean, but spiritual strength. He gives the strength to carry out Krishna's instructions. And that strength is coming to us through parampara. On our own, we're all very tiny little sparks. And without good association, the tiny spark can go out. But in good association, inspiring bhakti association, the spark can retain its original or revive its original fiery quality. So we're in a precarious position. Let's be realistic. Material existence is a precarious, or as I say in this part of the world, it's a dodgy situation. Things are very, well, again, precarious. The example given in the song, Bhaja Hore Mana, just like a drop of water is balanced on a petal of a lotus flower. Any moment, that drop can fall off. So we're like that in material existence, surrounded by so many complexities, sometimes adversities, sometimes perplexities. Happiness and distress are assaulting us from all directions. How do we get the strength to handle that? Well, we know how to take Sri Krishna Prasad. No one has any doubts about that strength-giving program. But you may wonder, how can I push on from day to day? Anyone who's honestly chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is aware of how much more progress we always need to make. We're eternally in pursuit of the Hare Krishna mantra. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself indicates, I'm so unfortunate. I have no attraction for chanting Hare Krishna, no raga. And he's the supreme chanter of Hare Krishna. So yes, chanting Hare Krishna is humiliating. And we can't stand that, right? We want to be achievers, accomplishers, champions. And when you try to chant Hare Krishna with attention, oh, it's so humbling, humiliating. We can just cry out in helplessness, like a child calling for mother. And that's the proper attitude for chanting Hare Krishna. Like a child taking shelter of mother. Just like now I can see the little lad, Dinanath, taking shelter of his mother, Dinadayala. So that's how we want to take shelter of the Hare Krishna mantra. He's sure that on his mother's lap, everything he needs is supplied. When will we have that kind of conviction for chanting Hare Krishna? So, yes, today we beg for spiritual strength from Lord Balaram. So, I began speaking about nectar of devotion, and I decided just to prove to you how nectarian is nectar of devotion, I'll just turn to the index under Balaram or Baladev. And I know the first entry. I don't know all of them by heart, but I know the first entry. Balaram advising Krishna to stay home. Now, you see, Balaram has fraternal rasa with Krishna, friendship, sakyaras. But there's also mixed in some parental or vatsalya prem and some servitude, some dasya prem. So in this case, Balaram, although his main relationship is friendship, he's acting with a bit of parental concern. He's saying, Krishna, don't go to Kaliya Lake today. I want you to stay home. It's your birthday, Mother Yashoda and I want to bathe you. So you might say, well, what is this? Balaram is being so assertive. I know this incident, but I'd still like to read to you from Nectar Devotion, if you don't mind. Baladev's affection for Krishna is illustrated in this statement to Subal. Subal, as you know, is one of the main cowherd boys in Braj. He's very intimate with Krishna as a cowherd boy. So much so that Subal can actually be the communications link with Krishna's gopis. So Baladev says to Krishna, my dear friend, excuse me, Baladev says to Subal, got that? He's speaking to Subal, one of the cowherd boys. My dear friend, please inform Krishna not to go to Kaliya's lake today. Today is his birthday, and so I wish to go along with Mother Yashoda to bathe him. Tell him he should not leave the house today. So Prabhupada explains, this shows how Balaram, Krishna's elder brother, took care of Krishna with parental love within the scope of fraternal affection. See, sometimes there are mixtures of rasas in Vrindavan, but there's always the main flavor, and other flavors are minor, not the major. Then we have another case in the Brahma Vimohana Leela, when Krishna bewilders Lord Brahma by assuming forms as the cowherd boys and calves to replace those that Brahma confiscated. So, you know how Balaram responded. Even Balaram couldn't know what Krishna was up to by Krishna's arrangement. For 1 year, such strange things were going on in Vrindavan. Everyone was loving the calves and the boys just like they were loving Krishna. So gradually, Balaram started to catch on in successive phases. He was wondering, what is this? Everyone is loving their son, and the cows are loving their calf, just like the calves and the sons were Krishna. What's going on here? So what he's saying, as pointed out in Nectar of Devotion, what he's thinking is that all these calves and cowherd boys are stimulating my ecstatic love as if they were Krishna. Now, what's this? We'll read from Nectar of Devotion. Lord Krishna, who is the possessor of inconceivable potencies and qualities of transcendental knowledge and bliss, is the basic cause of ecstatic love. He's the object of love. Lord Krishna also becomes the reservoir or the impetus of ecstatic love by his different incarnations and expansions. So get this. He's both the recipient, the object of love, but he also stimulates love. He becomes the impetus for love. And that's what Balaram is going to notice is going on in Vrindavan. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a statement in connection with the Brahma Vimohana Leela, which demonstrates something of this impelling or impetus giving feature of ecstatic love. Focus on the impetus giving nature of ecstatic love. Not simply Krishna receiving, but he's impelling. When Brahma was deluded by Krishna, who expanded himself into so many cowherd boys, calves, and cows, Krishna's elder brother, Sri Baladev, a direct expansion of Krishna himself, felt astonishment and said, "How wonderful it is that my ecstatic love for Krishna is again being attracted to so many cowherd boys, calves, and cows." He was struck with wonder by thinking in this way. This is one of the examples in which Krishna himself becomes the object and reservoir of ecstatic love in the impelling aspect. So you're all thinking about this impelling aspect. Balaram's feeling the impelling nature of Krishna, even though these are what everyone thinks are just calves and cows and cowherd boys of Vrindavan. Remember, Krishna in the Brahma Vimohana Leela took the place of all these calves, cows, and cowherd boys. So they're all Krishna. They're not Jiva. They're not part and parcel living entities. So therefore, Balaram's wondering, I'm feeling impelled in ecstatic love by these calves, cowherd boys, cows. What's going on here? And as you may recall from Krishna book or reading the Bhagavatam, Balaram was going through a checklist. Now, what could be going on here? Am I being bewildered by some kind of Rakshashi, some kind of demoniac witch? No, not possible. I'm Balaram. No witch can bewilder me with her mystic power. Gradually, in successive stages, as the Yoga Maya potency began to recede, Balaram started to figure out what's going on. This is all done by my brother, and I could not detect it. And then Krishna filled him in. I've told that pastime many times. I love saying it again and again, but you've all heard it from me, most of you, so many times. The successive stages of Balaram's realizing what's going on, what his brother has done. So let's look at the next. Bluish due to Shankashura. Shankashura is also known as Shankachuda. And I think I'm going to speak more about that pastime in my next session for the UK, which New Zealand time will be 6:30 p.m. It's an interesting pastime where you see teamwork between Krishna and Balaram. I'll give you a advanced Hitler for those of you who are able to tune in later. It's a nighttime in the spring pastime. It's right around the time that we call Gora Purnima. And it's also what we call Holi. It's in the forest in the night. So many young gopis and Krishna and Balaram are there. On one hand, it appears to be a merge, but the acharyas point out that there are actually two parties because Balaram always has his party of girlfriends and Krishna has his. They don't mix in that way, but because of the way the Leela is presented, there's so many of them, so it's referred to as one group, one happening. So just a brief mention from Nectar Devotion here. When the Shankasura demon was attacking Krishna's queens, not the queens in Dwarka, but the young cowherd girls of Vrindavan. When the Shankasura demon was attacking Krishna's queens, one after another, Lord Baladev became more and more bluish. Now, we're going to hear later how Balaram is described in Nectar Devotion as having the complexion of an autumn white cloud. So those of you in New Zealand, in the land of the long white cloud, when you see a very whitish cloud hanging in the sky, you can think of Lord Balaram's complexion, except in very rare incidents when he turns bluish. So again, I think I'll talk about Shankasura or Shankachuda later today. But yes, the bodily appearance of Lord Baladev. I already spoke a bit of it. I will read to you from Nectar of Devotion. One devotee described the personal beauty of Baladev as follows. Let me take shelter of the lotus feet of Balaram, whose beauty is enhanced by the earrings touching his cheeks. His face is decorated with tilak, made from kasturi, musk, and his broad chest is decorated with a garland of gunja. Those are small conch shells. His complexion is as white as an autumn cloud. He wears garments of blue color, and his voice is very grave. His arms are very long, touching his thighs, and he has shown his great strength by killing the Palamba demon. That's another Leela. in which Krishna and Balaram teamed up. And what happened was Krishna covered Balaram's potencies so that Pralamba would want to tangle with Balaram and Balaram would get the honors. So Krishna made himself appear most powerful one, and he covered Balaram's power. So Pralamba thought, yeah, I'll go for him. He's less powerful. So in that way, Balaram could enjoy dispatching the Pralamba Sura. Let me take shelter of this chivalrous Balaram. So now we're going to hear about Balaram's club. He's famous for wielding his club. The club, sometimes on its own, Balaram's club shows reverence to Krishna. Balaram himself, sometimes it just happens. He shows respect, reverence to his younger brother. So listen, even Balaram, the elder brother of Krishna, sometimes unknowingly offered respect to him. This is not a usual thing, in other words. Respect means reverence, awe and reverence. Once, when Lord Krishna came before Lord Balaram, Krishna was anxious to offer his respects to his elder brother. But at that time, Balaram's club was lowered down upon Krishna's lotus feet. In other words, the club in Balaram's hand offered its own respects to Krishna. These feelings of subordination, as explained above, are sometimes manifested as anubhava. So the club made its own respects to Krishna's feet by lowering at Krishna's feet, regardless of Balaram. Meanwhile, Krishna is anxious to offer his respects to his elder brother, but the club of the older brother bows down on its own. As I said, Balaram's famous for his club fighting. In Dwarka Leela, he dispatched Rukmi, the brother of Rukmini, just by a blow from his club. Krishna has his chakra, Sudarshan chakra. Balaram likes to use the club. I just finished. The cooling effect of Balaram. What could that be? Again, this involves Shankasura, or also known as Shankachuta. How could Balaram have a cooling effect? Another instance is described as follows. On one side of the courtyard, the dead body of Shankasura was lying, surrounded by many jackals. On another side were many learned brahmanas who were all self-controlled. They were offering nice prayers, which were as soothing as the cool breeze in summer. In front of Krishna, Lord Baladev was standing, causing a cooling effect. But even amid all these different circumstances of soothing and disturbing effects, the lotus flower of ecstatic conjugal love that Krishna felt for Radharani could not wither. This love of Krishna for Radharani is often compared to a blooming lotus. The only difference is that Krishna's love remains ever increasingly beautiful. So you have a mixture of circumstances here. Dead body of Shankasura lying on the ground. Another aspect present in the scene is many learned brahmanas, all self-controlled, offering nice prayers, soothing as a cool breeze in the summer. And then in front of Lord Krishna, Balaram is standing, issuing a cooling effect. In spite of all this going on, the love between Krishna and Radharani is not affected in terms of reducing in any way. So there are a lot of elements in Krishna's pastimes. The Leelas have many aspects, many depths, many tangents. And when you first read Nectar Devotion, you might not take it so significantly. Okay, the body of the demon Shankasura is lying on the ground. Yeah. Brahmanas are offering prayers. Yeah. Prayers have a cooling effect. Okay. Balaram is there in front of Krishna giving a cooling effect. Yeah. But the more you read Nectar Devotion, the more you become sensitive to these flavors and permutations of flavors in the spiritual world. Material life desensitizes us toward Krishna because we're intent on being the enjoyer and the controller. In our futile attempt to imitate Krishna, we become desensitized. By reading Nectar Devotion a little bit every day, gradually, year after year, year by year, your sensitivity starts to return. So again, Srila Prabhupada's instruction for us about Nectar Devotion is just read it. He said, don't write him letters. Prabhupada, what is this? Prabhupada, what is that? Nectar Devotion requires realization through devotional service. It's not a book that's conquered by some kind of theological prowess, academic ability. It's a book, it's Rupa Goswami's gift to us, rendered by Srila Prabhupada. It's a book that requires devotional service so that we can assimilate it. What's on Krishna's mind? Sometimes even Balaram doesn't know. You heard that about the Brahma Mohana Leela, about the bewilderment of Lord Brahma, and that bewilderment even extended to Balaram. Balaram couldn't figure out what was happening for a whole year. But Krishna has a quality known as gravity. And Balaram is used as an example to highlight Krishna's gravity. This is in the chapter called Qualities of Sri Krishna. Grave, the 26th quality of Krishna. A person who does not express his mind to everyone, or whose mental activity and plan of action are very difficult to understand, is called grave. After Lord Sri Krishna had been offended by Brahma, Brahma prayed to him to be excused. But in spite of his offering nice prayers to Krishna, Brahma could not understand whether Krishna was satisfied or still dissatisfied. In other words, Krishna was so grave that he did not take the prayers of Brahma very seriously. Those prayers are in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto. And after Brahma delivers such extraordinarily exquisite prayers, Krishna is thinking, who is this four-headed Brahma offering me such prayers? I'm just a cowherd boy in the village of Vrindavan. So Brahma couldn't figure out, is he satisfied or is he not? Now, in terms of Balaram, another instance of Krishna's gravity is found in connection in his love affairs with Radharani. Krishna was always very silent about his love affairs with Radharani. So much so that Baladev, Krishna's elder brother and constant companion, could not understand the transformations of Krishna on account of his gravity. So you get it. Even Balaram couldn't figure out what was going on between Krishna and his dearest devotee in terms of how the relationship affected Krishna. This is an example of being grave. Even your immediate expansion, Balaram, can't get to the bottom of your ecstatic transformations, what's going on in your in Krishna's private affairs. Now, as I mentioned briefly before, in Braj Leela, Krishna has his set of cowherd girls and Balaram has his, and they have their dancing in different spots. Okay, what comes next? The defeat of Balaram by Sri Dhamma in terms of mock fighting. That's something the cowherd boys love to do. Battles in the forest. Listen to this, because Balaram apparently is defeated. But remember, it's all for play. It's all for pleasure. As the cowherd boys play in the forest, who is victorious over whom is not the point. The point is to have supreme pleasure.
Hare Krishna. Just a quick announcement. We're going to end the live stream on Facebook because they're going to start live streaming the Abhishek, but class can continue on Zoom and on the YouTube. So if anyone's watching on Facebook, they can jump over to Krishna Katha Auckland YouTube channel to continue hearing the class, or they can watch it later. Thank you. I saw you can continue. The class can go longer now, so there's no time restraint.
Once Krishna was watching